So, in my opinion, there are a bunch of different practices that encourage classroom participation. But the five that I have narrowed it down to are the first one is to use different kinds of whole class responses. So, you want all of your students to be participating as a teacher, but sometimes certain students don't like to be singled out. So you have to find a way to get them to participate without calling on them individually. A good way to do that, something that I like to use, is at the end of every lesson, every day, I try to ask the kids on a scale of 1 to 5, hold up on your hand. 1, you don't get it at all, or 5, you get it. Have them hold that up to kind of gauge where they're at to see what I need to reteach. And another technique I like to use with that is whiteboards, where the students write their answer down and then flip them over at the same time. That way I can really only see their answers unless somebody turns around and looks at the answers. The second thing that encourages classroom participation is to allow extra wait time. If you give students time to think, they are more likely to give you an answer because they're not answering right on the spot. If you call on a student right on the spot, most of the time they'll just be like, I don't know, because they're afraid of being wrong in front of their friends. And if you give them something that is right about their answer, even if their answer is wrong, they are more likely to participate in the future. This leads into the third strategy that I think encourages student participation, is to always give your students praise. You need to give your students praise, that way they feel wanted and they feel liked in your classroom. Giving them praise helps them to realize that they're doing something right and they're not just getting everything wrong. The fourth strategy that I think helps promote student participation is relating the material to different students' cultures. You don't want to just focus on one culture. You want to relate it to all the different cultures, not even just in your classroom, just different cultures in general. But specifically in your classroom, because the students are more likely to be engaged if it's something that's relating to them. I know that at Salmon River, where I'm teaching, they are big into lacrosse and hockey. So I try to relate different questions to those sports rather than, say, basketball as they were originally written. I try to rewrite them and reword them. That way it's something that relates to these students. And this leads to the fifth practice that I think encourages student participation, and that is to use many different ways to communicate. You have to give the students a chance to show what they know. So, for example, you need to use the whiteboard, the smartboard, a pen and a paper, a written test, an oral test. You need to give the students a chance to show you that they know what is going on. And a good way to do that is by multiple means of communication or testing. Okay, now 5 practices that would discourage English language learner participation. But not even just them, everybody participation. And I've kept these pretty short and sweet because I think that they're pretty self-explanatory why they would discourage classroom participation. The first one being, if you don't acknowledge their culture. If you don't acknowledge their culture, they're going to think you don't want them in there. The second one is, if you expect a student to be right every time that they answer, they are going to shut down pretty quick, which leads into my third one. If you don't give them any positive feedback. No positive feedback, even if they are not doing very well. Every kid needs positive feedback in some way, shape, or form. They need to be told that they're doing something right. This leads into the fourth one. If they say something and it's not exactly right, but it's not wrong, you can't just find the negative. You have to give them the positive too. And the fifth one, and this one I think is the most important, is if you never call on them. Even if you know that they don't really like to answer, you still have to call on them, because if you don't call on them, then they're not going to want to participate. Whereas if you call on them and you see that they're getting things right, they may see, okay, I know something. I will participate. And those are the strategies that I have come up with for a student teacher of how to encourage participation in the classroom and how to discourage participation in the classroom.